Welcome to Tennessee State University's Department of Art and Design Art Talk with Lani Adeoye. I'm Courtney Adair Johnson. I'm the gallery director here at TSU. I go by she and her. Feel free to update your pronouns after your name to be the most inclusive. We're excited to offer this conversation in partnership with creative arts publisher Phaidon, with the support also from global luxury company Kering. Phaidon and Kering have partnered around Phaidon's new publication, Women Made, Great Women Designers. This ambitious book features 200 women from 1900 to present day, celebrating some of the most incredible and impactful design ever produced by women designers, including today's guest, Lani Adeoye. As part of this partnership and in alliance with their dedication to spotlight women contributors in the field of culture and the arts, Kering is proud to present the Women in Motion Design Scholarship. The Women in Motion Design Scholarship is an award of up to $25,000 to support one outstanding undergraduate woman designer and will go towards supporting their college tuition and fees for the 2022 to 23 academic year. Additionally, Kering and Phaidon will be donating $2,000 worth of material to TSU's art department, inspired by Lani Adeoye's work. So we'll give you more information on that later. A bit about our speaker, Lani Adeoye, is driven by conceptual curiosity and cultural expression, coupled with a thirst for innovation. She uses design as a meditation tool, fusing tradition and modernity, merging art, craft, and design with expressing intangible cultural concepts. Prior to studying in Parsons, the New School, Lani worked in a management and IT consultant in Fortune Global 100 clients. Following the graduation from McGill University, where she earned her bachelor's degree in commerce. Her versatility as a designer is a testament to her eclectic roots and diverse life experiences, having lived in 4 major cities, namely Lagos, Montreal, Toronto, and New York. Lani is a strong believer in the power of design as a tool to problem solve, empower communities, and positively impact our livelihood. Lani enjoys collaborating on design projects in various scales, and she welcomes a creative challenge. Professor Sue Ballard de la Ruse will conclude our conversation by starting a Q&A with her design class. You may also put questions in the chat that Lani can respond to at the end of the lecture. I will drop some links to the book, scholarships, and Lani's work in the chat. Welcome, Lani, to TSU. We're thrilled to have you here today and to learn more about your practice and career.
Great, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I hope everyone's doing good. I want to say a quick thank you to Phaidon for inviting me. I'm really honored to be a part of Women Made. And also thank you to Tennessee State University. And I am a designer and design consultant. And so I will be sharing about my work. Okay, so before I get into the slides, I'd just like to say, for me, I sort of really see design as a mediation tool. And what I mean by that is if you think of mediation as sort of, thinking about, different opposing parties or views and sort of bringing together to, find a sort of like an agreement. And design has really been that tool for me. And I'll share a little bit about, just me in general to give you a bit of context. So I was raised in Lagos, Nigeria, and I've lived in a few other places. So I just saw in the chat that some folks couldn't hear me. So, okay, they can hear me now. Okay, great. So I've lived in a few other places, Toronto, New York, Montreal. So in terms of location, kind of moved around a little bit. And in terms of career, I used to be in the corporate world. I used to be in management consulting and IT strategy before I moved to New York to study design interior architecture. So basically, my life in many ways has been highly influenced by this concept of duality. And that has been a big part of my design journey as well. So one of the questions I had heard or had seen actually, and it usually comes up, is sort of how to get into the design industry. And I don't think there's, any one sort of one way or one template. But one thing I wanted to mention is that for me personally, participating in exhibitions has been has been really helpful. And it's been a great way to get real-time feedback, and also to basically, it's been a great way for me to also connect with press as well. So this is some of the exhibitions I've participated in. Now, what's on my mind? I feel like my mind is always kind of, basically thinking about different things all at once, different perspectives. And, sometimes I'm thinking about the past and very sort of, nostalgic about, memories and so forth. I'm also thinking about sort of preserving certain traditional techniques and whatnot. And at the same time, thinking about the present and innovation and the future. And design has been, using design as a mediation tool, like I mentioned, has been a way to kind of connect all these different thoughts into one thing. Okay, so let's get into it. One of my earlier inspirations was the talking drum. And the talking drum basically is an iconic West African musical instrument. It's called the talking drum because it's one of the few musical instruments that can actually mimic the human intonation. So back in the days, it was used as a communication tool. So there were certain folks in the community who actually knew how to beat the drum in a way to craft a message. And then they would beat the drum, and that message will be sent to the next community. Will be able to hear the message, and they would have interpreters who would then receive that message. So it was really important in times of celebrations, when they wanted to spread good news for everybody to gather around, but also in times of trouble when people needed to kind of, prioritize safety. So this talking drum, I grew up sort of seeing it around. Now it's used as a musical instrument for, celebrations and just to kind of like, just for good vibes and just fun. It's no longer used per se in like a city like Lagos in that way. But it was something that kind of had just kind of been embedded in my memory, sort of seeing this drum and then me getting older and researching more into what it had initially been used for. So the story behind it was quite intriguing to me. But also visually, the form was also interesting. As you can see, there are these leather cords that actually surround the musical instrument. The interior of the musical instrument is actually a wooden, a sort of an hourglass shape. And so one of the first pieces I actually designed was this candle holder called the Talking Lights. So right here, what I actually want to say is, so I actually I started this collection while I was still a student, I believe. And, I think sometimes, when one is a student, it can seem a little daunting when you're looking at other people's websites and portfolios. But I think, in terms of me at that time, what I could afford to do was the talking lights, the candle holders. I think sometimes it's quite helpful to start with a small to start small scale. So you can make those mistakes on a small scale, learn from that, and then sort of progress in scale later on. But that's just kind of what I did. But if someone has another way of doing it, then it's definitely there's definitely no template. But that was a great way for me to test out that concept. And the talking lights, actually, the way I would say the layering and the materiality and the form became a huge part of sort of how other collections progressed. So I'm going to show you how that has really sort of inspired further collections. So that really set the tone, I would say, for the visual DNA of a lot of the pieces I've designed. Now, this is a talking table. It's a side table made out of wood and metal. So it's actually turned wood. It's actually a multifunctional side table. So it also functions and it has a tray top, and it also has a decorative light. So with this piece, it was something I wanted to test a little bit more of a multifunctional furniture, and create something that I felt could work in a variety of spaces. So that was one of the earlier pieces. This is also a much earlier piece, but I wanted to show this for a reason, because a lot of my collections are, motivated or inspired by different things. And with this particular piece, this is one of. With this particular piece, I wanted to challenge myself creatively. So as you can see, that was literally me. On the left, you can see like sort of little miniature metal forms. So I was literally, doing a lot of different sort of concept models. And that was a really, that process of conceptualizing is something that I do quite often. And it allows me to basically almost sort of surrender to the creative process, sort of freeing myself from a specific outcome and just kind of going it with the organic flow of things. For this particular piece, I was challenging myself to create a sort of a chair or a sitting object, let's say that had a continuous metal line. So there's this element of, I would say, rhythm in a lot of my pieces, which connects to the, I think the earlier inspiration of musical instruments like the talking drum. So the idea was to create this metal line, which you can see is the back leg of the chair. It becomes the back sit, and then it becomes the front sit, and the front leg as well. So that was sort of the main thing I was trying to sort of challenge and push myself with that particular piece. Like I said, the metal part of the talking table, that was sort of my first initial process in terms of, testing out the sort of how to sort of explore metal. Now, what I actually want to also mention is, if you remember the talking drum image I showed earlier on, it had an hourglass form. Now, the leather cords of the talking drum have basically become metal lines in my work. And so in a way, I sort of deconstructed the talking drum. So the leather cords have become metal lines, and those metal lines now mimic the sculptural sort of hourglass interior. And those have kind of morphed into many different types of forms over the years. So these are actually 3 sculptural floor lamps. The middle piece is called Sisi Eko. Now, Sisi Eko is basically can be loosely translated to mean a Lagos lady. And it was really a piece celebration of femininity. This is another version, a pen and light version of the Sisi Eko. One thing that I wanted to point out here is, when I first started showing some of my pieces in exhibitions in different parts of the world, I would have people come up to me and say, "Oh, your pieces are so elegant, but it just kind of reminds me of something. There's something African about it somehow." And I started to realize that people had sort of unfortunately, a hard time saying elegant and Africa or African in the same sentence, which was, quite shocking to me. And so it's in the work that I do, I'm also trying to challenge people's perception of what they think should be, of what they think, art or design should be coming or connect to Africa should be, because it's such a vast and diverse continent. But yet, there's still sort of this monolithic and, at times sort of archaic view on what people sort of expect with regards to creativity coming or connected to the continent. So definitely trying to show more of contemporary view and really challenge and broaden people's perspectives. All right. So what I want to show here actually is the fact that I like to challenge myself, and here you can see the different product categories that we've delved in. You can see some pendant lights here. You can see some coffee table. You can see one coffee table. You can see some floor lamps and some stools. So with the work I do, it's experimental. I'm very curious and I love exploring. So whether it's working on my own or working with clients and collaborating with clients, I'm very much always interested in exploring different ways to do different things, or even just testing out different product categories as well. So we work mostly in metal, but I've also done some stuff in wood. This is a wood wall sconce. It's called Igbako. And this particular piece was inspired by a food utensil, a wood food utensil. And basically, that food utensil is basically used to almost like scoop what we call solid food in Nigeria. And some of you may know like fufu, eba, pounded yam, which I would say is probably equivalent in some ways, or the closest thing would be like a mashed potato. So if you think of like a, an utensil or, wooden spoon that sort of like, sort of almost scoops it out, that was the sort of the main inspiration for here. And I was very strategic about how I wanted the light to sort of exude from within the piece. For this particular piece, I worked with some talented wood carvers to really sort of create texture and sort of really bring the piece to life. So I work with a lot of different communities, and it's also a big part of my process in terms of that social aspect as well. Now, I would like to also, so I've shown some conceptual models. I thought here I would show some sketches and a bit of a sort of a product life cycle a little bit. So I spent a lot of time sketching and sort of just figuring out different forms, ways different things will connect. So in the next slide, I'm going to show you a short video of this particular light you see here as a sketch. So we were actually working outside. We were in transition with our studio here. So we were working outside at that particular point. But I thought it was a good video to show how, those pieces that I had sketched, to see sort of like they had been made into like to actual metal pieces here. And then we're working to basically create the layering process. We had a different material on top, and that's David, who I've worked with for quite some time, helping me as we sort of really sort of figure out the dimensions. Different pieces take different amounts of time. It's a very iterative process. Sometimes it depends on how different the piece is from our existing collection. If it's something that's more in line with our existing collection, then it's the cycle is a bit shorter. But you can see us sort of exploring form here and playing with scale. This was also for a specific client, and for this client, color and sort of the use of color was important. So you see shortly towards the end, the piece sort of evolving, or see like a final piece. But yeah, it's a very hands-on process. It's very much, us working closely. A lot of the guys I work with don't typically actually make, lighting fixtures or furniture. So I spend a lot of time working with them closely, mostly before the pandemic, to really kind of, work together to create these new pieces. So now you can see, so the client wanted those specific colors, and so we customized the pieces for that. So that's basically how I wanted to show that sort of like sketch to actual final piece. Some of the artisans I've worked with. So this particular piece is called Eye on the Future. You can see with the sort of abstract sort of take on the eye here on the sketch. This was for a law firm actually, and this piece was really inspired by their, I would say the company's ethos in general. They are a company that's quite visionary, and they have a lot of foresight in terms of how they do things. So it was a special commission and I wanted to do something that really spoke to that. So I wanted something that felt futuristic. I wanted something that almost felt like it was in motion. So I came up with a few different sketches. This was sort of the preference. And so we started making it. You can see here that we made a small sort of model here. And then we do a markup to sort of, adjust it and figure out, how we need to make some updates for the next, the actual piece, because the actual piece is a lot larger. I guess what's also want to mention here is, when you start with a sketch, it's always a process and things sort of evolve, and it can be, it can change a little bit from the original thing, which you can see here, there were some changes. And then we adjusted a bit more. So it's definitely an iterative process. This is the large scale piece and some of the guys I worked with. And this is the piece again in process. So I painted it. I wanted it to have sort of an iridescent feel. So I do paint some of this. I'm also an artist in some ways. Yeah, this is the final piece in the actual space. As a talented metal artist I worked with up there. This is the final piece in the space again. It's a pretty large piece. It's basically a luminous sculpture that hangs on the wall. This is a close-up of it. So you can see how intricate and how detailed the metal rods are. I would say this is really a celebration of metal craftsmanship. And I would say, a lot of the work I do, again, is about merging sort of art, craft, and design. Like I said, sort of using design as a mediation tool to fuse, maybe areas and sectors that people might see in different silos. For this particular collection, I really wanted to create something that had a sort of an ease to it. I was thinking of a beachfront property. I was having some conversations, and it was really inspired, I would say, by the ocean, sort of waves and ocean sort of ripples. And you can see that in sort of the curves on the actual piece. So this was more of like an earlier conceptual process. My sketches are very loose to kind of really focus more on feeling, I would say, and what's the goal or the idea is. And then you can see there's a bit of process involved between there and here, where you can see this is the final piece, and you can see how it's kind of evolved, but it still has that sort of like sort of ocean, sort of easy breezy. You can see the ripples with the curves here, and I wanted it to have some type of lift-like umbrella, almost as if it was sort of like a little creature in nature, sort of under a lift or something. So my mind definitely, and my imagination definitely likes to, go places. I work with a lot of, different artisans, like I mentioned. We test out a lot of different weaving techniques and different materials. This is also part of that collection. And again, you can see the ripples being a part of the identity of the actual product. I would say for me, whenever I have a concept, when I can, we try to see, how else it can be used to create another product. I think that's one of the fun things about, the whole conceptualization process. And it almost makes a concept feel stronger when you can sort of, play with scale and play with the other different product categories and push it in other ways as well. This is a woven, basically barite stool. So this is called the Bata stool. Bata means shoes in Yoruba, which is a tribe I'm from in Nigeria. And if you look at this piece, I would say the legs basically create the identity of this piece. And so it's really a piece that when my mindset at that particular time, I was thinking a lot about journey and sort of walking in someone's shoes. And so that was sort of the thing that informed the identity, and sort of the legs being the sort of the main statement of it. But then also wrapping around with leather and exploring different webbing leather techniques was also another interesting thing we wanted to explore here. So now this is an example of a sort of a collaboration where we were asked to do some design consulting for a space. Had a few days to sort of, turn a sort of like a restaurant into a sort of a lounge space for an event. And you can see these mortars here, which are traditionally used to cook food, which we repurposed to create side tables. And the bench on the left here are actually sort of velvet cushion tops with bamboo under. So the idea here was really, again, when I said about fusing different worlds, velvet is usually considered a bit more lush and bamboo more sort of, organic and raw. And so fusing that, I thought would create a very interesting, sort of nice contrast. Alrighty, so the next collection that I wanted to talk about is basically really inspired by a mat women's weaving community in Ekiti, just outside of Lagos. So I was doing a lot of research, and I really wanted to work with this community. They create these mats that are, extremely sustainable, but it's like, the same that story, like many sort of crafts in the world, where it's sort of like there's a decline in the demand. And so I was trying to sort of figure out how to work with these mats to create something else. And so I actually started reaching out to different furniture makers. But the thing is, the mats are not, obviously used to make furniture. So a lot of furniture makers were not as keen to do it. The mats, just like typical mats in terms of they're kind of just on the floor. So a lot of people were resistant to test them out as actual material for furniture. So I started making it myself. And as I started making it myself, it started to look like a shoe. So I was basically testing out the mats to almost kind of use it as a material to upholster, ottomans and stools. I figured, you can't force people to buy mats, but if you sort of give it a new life and find a new way to make something that is considered traditional, make it feel more modern, then you can still sort of, have this material that's of value, that's sustainable, and find a way to also support this community. And that's how this collection really developed. So as I was saying, I started making it myself, and in the process, I realized it was looking more like a shoe. And so I thought, okay, I think I'm talking to I need to be talking to a different group of people. So instead of, trying to force things with the furniture makers, I started reaching out to shoemakers, and a lot of the shoemakers work with leather anyways. And if you think about it, you have to sculpt a shoe when you're making it, which is what really needed to be done to the mats. And so I basically, started working with shoemakers, and we started to sculpt the mats, to take on different forms as we made different stools with different shapes. And that's really what started the collection. And so we started testing out in different colors. And, also you can see the woven tops. It started off with a very sort of simple flat top, and then we started testing out with the woven tops and woven strips. So that way we could also incorporate reusing, other leather and making it more sustainable process as well. So this is to show you the stools in a bit more of a sort of a minimal vibe, and then this is to show you in a bit more of a just a different, more different environment. This is a space in Lagos called Art 21 by Shuri. So it's been a great process working with different communities to, like I said, take something traditional, give sort of a more modern, modern appeal, modern feel, and it's something that really is able to complement a lot of different spaces, like I showed. And so I would say this is one of the ways that I really feel design could be used as a tool. So this is some zoomed up images of the stools. So overall, I would say that my design journey has been really a way for me to kind of use and merge different thoughts and different things that are constantly roaming in my mind, and different things I'm interested in. And I really feel like it's been a way to sort of find harmony and create synergy between seemingly different worlds. And that's why I sort of say design is a mediation tool for me. So on that note, I would love to take questions, and I'm happy to engage further.
Thank you so much. I know we had discussed, students have sent me pages of questions, and we've selected 3 of those for you to answer. One of the things that really impressed me were those stools, and how you were inspired. It was both sustainable and you're bringing that community together. So what is it that does inspire you in your work?
Right. So thank you. Yeah, so I think I'll start with that one. So for that particular one, it was sort of motivated by a social, wanting to work with that community, wanting to, further that and preserve and conserve that tradition. Like I said, it's something that's quite sustainable. I would say, so heritage is important. I would also say other things that inspire me. I'm a very curious person by nature. So sometimes it's also childhood memories. I've moved away from home and have had to create different homes at different times. So I think being in my sort of thinking about stuff and almost not necessarily being stuck in my memory, but always thinking about past memories has been a huge source of reconnecting to home, or the feeling of home or family. And I think the talking drums, for example, was an example in the sense that I was away, I was in Canada. So my whole family actually immigrated to Canada. And at that time, I was probably, I was not close to, folks that I grew up with. And I wasn't sort of experiencing those celebrations that I grew up experiencing. And so the talking drum was a reminder, and it's sort of like a symbolism of, good times with loved ones that I cherished at an earlier stage in life.
Great, thank you. Another question, a fairly popular question. Right now, you're talking to dozens of students through Zoom. And one of the common questions was, what advice would you give college students that are struggling right now? And keep in mind, they're 2 weeks from finals. So some of them are struggling right now more than they normally do.
Okay. I definitely empathize, because I've definitely been there before. So I would say work really hard. That's definitely the obvious one. I would say trust your gut as well. And I would say, just in general, in addition to what you're learning in school, there's also a lot of information, I think more than ever, that's accessible. And so whenever you're learning in school and you want to sort of delve more and deeper into something, definitely take advantage of school resources and learning that, or also reaching out to people. I think being a student, that's the best time to also make mistakes, really explore, take risks. And I would also say challenge yourself or be kind to yourself. So you got to find that balance where you're, challenging yourself to, think about things differently. But you're also, I think we also have to be careful about our mental health. So you want to be kind to yourself. I would also say focus on really getting to know and understand yourself. I think the more you're self-aware, in general, it'll sort of give you a stronger understanding of where your interests, your strengths are, and what you want to, which path or how you want to sort of navigate your career and other things. I would also say network, reach out to people. I think, for me, I focused a lot on reaching out to people as well. And you hear no more than once, but sometimes you get a yes. And when you get those yeses, you cherish those. And it's always good to, I think being a student is such, like I said, I can't re-emphasize how crucial that learning and being very active about learning and exploring.
Okay, the last question from me before we go directly to the students. In your presentation and previous interviews, you've talked about using different scales. We saw, the large sculptural lamp lighting piece, as well as your very small candle holder. But can you give us an example of a project that was at a larger scale?
Yeah, thank you. So I would say, actually I do design consulting as well. And I would say one that was quite exciting was working on a project with YouTube, where I conceptualized stage design for them for their Fan Fest event in Washington, DC. And basically I created sort of like the concept for the look and feel of the stage. And also for the booth design and marketing materials and so forth. And so that was an experience where it was pretty grand. YouTube's Fan Fest, I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with it. I collaborated with Good Sense New York. They executed the actual sort of taking the concept that I had worked on and make it into like a reality. So that's definitely something that was quite large scale, and it's not sort of as it's very different from the typical products and object stuff that I do. So for me, I really enjoy, like I said, challenging myself, and I really enjoy working with clients to whether it's consulting with clients to help them develop some product collections, or whether it's a spatial thing. I know some of the folks here are interior design students. So actually, my background is interior design to architecture. Furniture was something that I kind of basically really actively started learning on my own informally, and then just through trial and error, and just really just working hard, and then, like I said, just spend a lot of time with folks and being very active about the learning process. But I'm also working on some design consulting projects. I can't share some of them now, but they're going to be quite exciting. So we're looking to do more. I'm looking to do more and more of that type of stuff as well.
I look forward to seeing it. I'm going to introduce students now, or actually I'm going to let them introduce themselves and ask their question. So
okay,
just to get their head in here. Okay, there you go.
Hi, I'm Kennedy. My question is, what's your favorite memory since you started designing?
Okay, my favorite memory in general, since I started my design career, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good one. It's hard to say one like particular moment. I've definitely had some good memories. I would say a highlight would probably be winning the Emerging Designers Furniture Design Competition at Wanted Design. So there's like an emerging design section launchpad. So winning the furniture, that was definitely highlights. That was a definitely encouraging moment. And it was also a great way to connect further with industry folks. And I would say it was really important for me at that particular time in my life when I was sort of, exploring different things. But I would say other memories, just even the day-to-day sometimes of working with, whether it's, collaborating with different people, whether it's even the conceptualization process when you are like, just working relentlessly and all of a sudden have this aha moment, but yeah.
Next student.
Hey, I'm Yori, and my question is, what has been your biggest accomplishment since you've been on this journey?
All right, thank you. So I guess one of the accomplishments was the emerging designers one I mentioned. I would say another accomplishment, I would say some commission work that we've done, like the And the Future was pretty special. I would say being invited or being included in, invited to certain exhibitions. We were invited to exhibition with Female Design Council, 40 innovative women designers. Being a part of Women Made, that's pretty huge too. I would also say being a part of like the Milan Design Show, we're part of like a presentation 2.5 years ago or so. So I would say those have been key sort of career markers that sort of like, sort of encourage and sort of keep the momentum going. Keeps it exciting.
Hello, I'm Faith Reeves. My question is, if you could use one word, how would you describe your work?
I could use one word. I gotta pick one, not two, right? Okay, no problem. I'm gonna say harmony. I think harmony is something that's important to me as a person. And I would say in the design world, harmony is also something that I hope to express. If I could have picked a second word, I would say rhythm. But yeah.
Those are good words. She's actually in one of the classes, or she had it last semester or last year, space planning, where we talked about rhythm and we talked about harmony. So that's
Amazing. Amazing.
Okay. So those are our questions. I know they sent you a lot of questions, and I think you answered some of those in the presentation. But we very much appreciate you talking to the students. I'm sure they thoroughly enjoyed it. And one of the great things I think about professional designers coming in is you're an inspiration to them as well. And so when I'm making them think about concepts and inspiration, they understand why and where it's going. And that's very helpful.
It's been a pleasure. And, I definitely know what it's like to be a student. So I enjoy doing this. So yeah, I just want to encourage them to keep going, and keep working hard. And like I said, just, getting to know yourself, because it's such a big world out there. And sometimes it can seem confusing. And there's a lot of distractions. But I think for me, sort of focusing on getting to know myself has allowed the process of elimination, and then figuring out, which areas I want to sort of challenge and sort of develop myself more.
I think I'll hand it over to Courtney, because there may be a few people. I don't know how much time we have left. I know that there are some attendees who have questions.
I saw this one. How has your work always been informed by your identity? Thinking of the European influences in your chair design, is it an intentional decision to include these African elements, or does it organically show up in your process and work?
Right. I would say it's both. I would say it's a good question, and it's both. There are times when it's just, who we are is who we are, you know what I mean? And it just kind of flows. And there are times where, you want to sort of express it more, and it's more intentional, because there are gaps in the industry. And, unfortunately, certain cultures are not celebrated. And so it's an intentional effort to also show that every culture has something to add to the global design conversation. And so I definitely, from the beginning, like the talking drums and talking lights and talking tables, those are very intentional. It was me sort of being like, every culture should be reflecting our world, right? And every culture has something positive to add to the, like I said, global design conversation. And that's part of the reason why I switched careers, growing up, I never really saw that in the stuff. I always liked creativity and objects and stuff, but I just again, it was just not diverse. And so that was one of the things that pulled me in, and just in myself wondering, well, why not? What can we do? Why, and just really trying to figure out what can I do to add to that.
There was another one that referenced sort of the places you've traveled or lived and how they help you develop some of the pieces inspirationally wise.
Yeah, I would say that I think Oprah always says that we're more alike than we are different, if that makes sense. So it's like, growing up as a little girl in Nigeria, initially you might see something and just think, oh my God, it's only here that we have this object or something. And you find out, the next country or somewhere in Latin America, they have that sort of similar weaving technique, right? So I think for me, it's been a sort of beautiful journey to kind of, as you get to know yourself more and you connect more with different cultures as well, you start to just find sort of universal human sort of things that show up in design and materiality and stuff. And that has been interesting. I hope I extend that. I hope I responded to that question well. It just kind of started reminding me of some other things.
I think those are the best answers.
Okay.
Here's a good one. I heard you mention mental health and being kind to yourself. How do you stay grounded and intentional when clients have their brief, but you also have a steadfast design psychology, philosophy?
Yeah, that's a good one. So, design is problem solving, right? And so it's a service that we're, working together with others and for others. And as much as I take an artistic approach to design, I still am very aware that it's of service to others, if that makes sense, right? So it's about finding balance. It's about, in some ways, thinking of it as a mediation tool, right? Where it's like, okay, how do you sort of have it still be connected to what it is that you gravitate towards? So I'll answer this question two-folded. So I would say from a sort of a design perspective, I would say, it should definitely connect to what you gravitate towards, but it could also still work with what the client's needs are. But if you're talking about other perspectives, I think in general, like, you should never go against whatever you believe. If you have certain ways or design philosophies that are just not in alignment with the client, then it's more of a principle or more, and principle, it could be in sustainability or whatever it is, like that you definitely want to stick to what you believe and stay grounded with that. But I think when it comes to the problem solving aspect, you will find that the more open-minded you are to listen to clients and actually actively listen to clients, you will learn more about other things and challenge yourself. And I think for me, sometimes those can even be really great learning opportunities and rewarding, and the idea of wonder and surprise come into play, and it can be quite beneficial.
I think that's a great way to end the conversation today. Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you
guys.
Thank you, Lani.
Pleasure.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We will have this available on our YouTube once it gets edited and fancied up by Phaidon. And so you can review it there at your leisure. And again, thanks, Lani, for being here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me, and wishing everyone a good rest of the day.